So welcome back to the BCA podcast. And this week, I'm just going to be real transparent and let you know that I have two guests on tonight that I was just super excited that they agreed to be on. They have been, I've followed their social media for years, and it's the quality of the photos, quality of the videos, the quality of the message, and the insightfulness and the provocative questions they ask, and their sense of humor is just outstanding. So was that good, guys? So I'm going to welcome to the show Cody Altizer, right? Is that right? Altizer.
You got
Western
it. Yes,
New York.
sir.
We got it mixed up. And then Erich Long to the podcast tonight, and we're going to talk about. I think we'll probably talk about a bunch of stuff, but mostly grouse is what we're going to chat about tonight. So, welcome, guys.
Glad to be here, man.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you having us.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you say that now, but
we had not to get off topic. We had a podcast for a little while, and you go back every now and then. I'll listen to our first, handful, and oh boy,
yeah,
Cody was really bad.
Is we mean was is. You can speak in present tense.
I used to listen to it, and his voice just puts me to rest. Like it puts me to sleep. He's so melodic in his tone. It's just
maybe that's my calling. I'll do like an app where I put people to sleep
instead of the rain dropping. Right, make you pee.
Listen to me. I'll tell you a story. And I got some stories. Depends on what kind of story you want to hear.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember listening to it, and they say don't ever go back to listen to your early ones. And this is like our 108th, and I'm not sure I'd listen to 107 or 106 even.
Yeah.
So, but you're the pinnacle. You are the top guys that I've gotten to chat with. So,
geez.
Yeah, I just don't tell Larry Weissoon that, because I told him the same thing.
Oh shoot!
You had Larry on?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Jeez.
And Lance Kruger. Yeah, we're.
Oh shoot! Yeah,
we're hitting all the
dropping. Had Donald Trump on. I didn't say much about that.
Yeah, Donald Trump told me one time it's not polite to drop names, so I've tried not to. So
I get it.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, tell me and our audience a little bit about yourselves as we jump in. And you don't have to. We were joking beforehand about your social security number and all that. But I mean, how did you get into the outdoor habitat consulting and management? How did you guys get into this world?
Go ahead, Cody.
How I got into it, ever since, I grew up at the end of a dirt road past the state maintenance sign. So you go to the middle of nowhere and you go a little bit further, and then that's where I grew up. So I was riding around with my dad shooting deer off the four-wheeler when he was shooting them. When I was 4 years old, I shot my first deer when I was 6. So I just grew up around and in nature, around hunting. And ever since I was a little kid, and hunting was kind of my avenue, just growing up watching my dad do it, wanting to do what my dad and my brother did. They took me hunting when I was 6. Hunting was kind of my avenue into the natural world. And then as I've gotten older and kind of been able to unpack it, I've learned that love to hunt. A big part of my career now is photography and film around hunting and wildlife and conservation. But I always tell people I care more about wildlife, care more about animals than I do hunting them. And I love to hunt. So as I got older, growing up hunting, I was a big deer hunter. That's really all I ever have hunted. That's really all I really care to hunt. As I got into deer hunting, learned about deer management and quality deer management. As I dipped my toes into that water, the more I learned about quality deer management, it opened my eyes to wildlife management. And that was, 20 some years ago when I first learned about quality deer management and kind of rode that wave, which, Erich was a big part of that big movement in the early 2000s. And like I said, QDM was kind of the vehicle that I drove into really understanding my connection with the natural world and with nature and wildlife. And, like I said, the more that I learned about nature and wildlife, and we've been fortunate to have always owned property where I grew up, and kind of always felt a responsibility to steward it, to take care of it, to leave it better than I found it. And like I said, it started as deer management and food plots, and then now transitioning into managing native ecosystems, whitetail deer, turkeys, quail, grouse, down to bumblebees, pollinators. I love to learn about native plants. I love to learn about how an entire native ecosystem works together. And the more, nothing's really changed, because the more I learn about that, the more I want to learn. The more I learn, the more I want to do. So I don't know if that was a productive answer, but just love being outside and love being around wildlife.
Cool. And you're in Virginia?
Yes, I live in Western Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Bath County.
Wow, that's warm.
It's ugly here. You should never visit.
Yeah, don't ever move there, right?
Right. Yeah, I hate it.
People are rude.
How about you, Erich?
Oh boy, I hate this part. Yeah, I've been managing wildlife professionally since I think '97. I work for a state agency, and almost got close to 30 years with them. But I started Drum and Log Wildlife Management in 2001, and concentrating on whitetail deer. It's a good name for whitetail deer consulting company, Drum and Log Wildlife Management. There's a story behind that, but been doing that since 2001, and kind of echo what Cody was saying, reference the QDMA and the QDM movement and stuff. And but yeah, after I don't do as much as I used to reference consulting. I semi-retired from it, but Cody's doing his best to get me back into doing more of it. I forget, Cody, what year when did I come up to your farm? And that's how we met.
Erich and I met in 2014. I don't even remember. I wish I knew how I chose you, because I had Erich come down to our property to do a consult. I hired Erich as a deer consultant, and that was 2014, and he came down and toured the property, and been best friends ever since.
Yeah. So we've been.
You paid him to be your friend, then.
Well, that's how the only way I can make friends is. So I wouldn't have friends if I couldn't.
And speaking of, your monthly payment did not come through yet. You'll get something in the mail from that. But anyway, so we've been doing that stuff for, after the consult, we just kind of hit it off. And Cody is, as you know, very talented at his craft of storytelling and videography, and his pictures should get just as much as photography should just get as much attention as his videography and storytelling. But so we just I forget what year, I think it was 2018 maybe, or some 2019, we kind of started the Deer Hunter Project. And someone was to ask us what that was all about, and there was probably 5 or 6 different answers of what it was. We just kind of let it mold into what it wanted to be. And so I've had a long career in wildlife management, seen everything other than murder. And it's just it's been a good career. Can't complain too much about it. And I know this ride that Mr. Altizer and I are on, that keeps me upright and out of the ground.
That's good. Yeah. Erich, did you go to school for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a fish and wildlife degree, and from a small college in Southern Ohio called Hawking College. And
I did my undergrad. I have a degree in natural resource management, and then
excellent.
I got pulled in other directions, apparently.
Yeah.
With the church, but 2 of my kids have followed in my footsteps. I have 2 that went through the Wanakina forestry school.
Excellent.
So they're both working with state agencies, and that was, I'm going to kind of turn us a little bit in a minute towards talking about grouse, but that was part of what really got me interested is my daughter, as part of her degree through at Syracuse University, was she worked with the state doing a survey of spruce grouse in the Adirondacks, and talking about how what the numbers are, why they're disappearing, and trying to reintroduce them. And so I kind of did some looking into that, and then we bought our property and said, deer. I had been through the QDM stuff and had been did their deer steward classes, and deer management is fairly straightforward, and we wanted a couple twists on it. We wanted to be focusing on native browse and forbs and that kind of thing. We want native plants. We wanted to add in the native flowers for the pollinators, but then we really wanted to focus in on turkey and grouse, because we felt like if we can manage for turkey and grouse, the deer will be there. And one of the first things that I followed as I followed you guys, I remember you going through a transition of now saying, okay, we've been managing with deer, and the grouse need our help, and that was a turning point for you guys, it seemed. Can you talk a little bit about that time? Like, what brought you to that place where you said, okay, we've got to spend a little bit more of our focus on grouse?
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Eric and I talk about this. It's funny to meet the people that you meet and why, and just God's plan for it all. Because Eric's business, and he started Drumming Log Wildlife Management in 2001. I was in the 7th grade, so he and I did not know each other. And then started Drumming Log Wildlife Management in 2001. My family and I were in the process of buying a piece of property in 2019, and I went for a walk on the piece of property one day before we had decided to pursue it and to buy it. And I'm a spiritual person, was looking for a sign, from God that this was the right decision for my family and I to do. It was like January or February, was hoping to find a shed, big deer antler, something along those lines. Didn't find that, which isn't uncommon because I never find sheds. But I flushed 3 rough grouse on that walk, and that was the sign that I took that as a sign that my family and I, that we should buy this piece of property. That was 2019, and again, this is Erich and Drumming. Erich and I had known each other for years at that point. I'd already started the Deer Hunter Project, but grouse, they were kind of floating around in mine and Erich's stratosphere. So we bought that piece of property, started the Deer Hunter Project in 2019, which part of that was we did a podcast. And it was probably one of the first couple dozen episodes that we did was with Ben Jones, who is the president of the Rough Grouse Society. And it was kind of just a general podcast episode. I mean, just to talk to Ben. We didn't really have a specific topic in mind. We weren't really going to, go into it with anything specific in mind, trying to accomplish. It was just to talk to the president of the Rough Grouse Society, see what we could learn and see what would happen from there. And Erich, at the time, Erich and I, and again, we're in Appalachia, which grouse, they're the most widely distributed game bird in North America. And some parts of North America, like they squirrel hunt them, because there's so many of them, and they're not really that intelligent of a bird. But where Erich and I are in Appalachia, populations are and have been dramatically decreasing. Yeah. So anyway, and part of the conversation with Ben, I think Erich asked him, what are the current projections for the future of the ruffed grouse? And at that point, again, we had an idea that grouse, we weren't covered up in them. We knew that they were, there was an issue, but we didn't know just how severe. Erich asked a question, and Ben said, this is 2020, keeping in mind, if current projections hold, 0. If current projections hold for the ruffed grouse in our lifetime, populations will be 0. Not exportation or whatever that were, extinction.
Wow.
So literally 0 ruffed grouse. I mean, it just floored Eric and I I mean, Ben is a biologist, a forester. He's not just pulling numbers out of thin air. That is based on projections and data and science. Zero. It just floored Eric and I, and we just agreed that the rough grouse need a voice. And again, that's 5 years ago. And I feel like a lot has changed in the wildlife management world. People are still managing for deer, but they're less species specific. And like I talked about, more people, I've noticed a positive trend that more people are focusing on specialist species such as, quail or grouse or native ecosystems, and not species specific, especially about deer. But 5 years ago, it was more deer than it is now. And, we noticed that there's plenty of people out there, and not to say that whitetails don't need a voice, but they have
Sure.
plenty of them. And,
Yeah.
rough grouse, we felt like needed a voice at that time. So we started, among many different things, is just advocating for the species, advocating for rough grouse. And we've done some fundraisers and, trying to create some content to educate, to inform, to advocate, and just, in short, give rough grouse the voice that we feel they badly need this day and age.
Yeah. It's funny that two deer people are known for. I mean, I have a career, got awards hanging on my wall, accolades of, hey, good job about deer management and stuff, and we're known for grouse, and yeah, how we got there is, it's a funny story. It's a good ride, but yeah, it's after hearing Ben say that, I mean, we got off the podcast because I think our direction was, letting sportsmen know that we have a shelf life. We are really dedicated, to bringing awareness to, hunters. Our first video that we ever did was called Deer Hunter. It was a letter to my son, and stuff. And, we were on that thing, and we, like Cody said, we just had somebody on, and it was like, what in the world? So yeah, that's the quick and dirty version of it.
Wow. It's, I remember, and I think it was one of you guys that asked the question, is whitetail management habitat management? Is there a difference? Was that you guys that asked that?
Yeah. We did a podcast about that. I forgot about
really,
that.
really provocative question, right? Like, beginning to get that switch of saying, okay, we're managing for a particular species as opposed to managing the habitat as a whole and what is in that habitat. And if you're doing habitat management right, then that whole ecosystem, like you mentioned, Cody, should flourish, right? If you're managing it as a whole and doing it well, then the grouse should be able to. And that's kind of been our. I think of the grouse as an indicator species, at least for us. We've had our property 8 years. This spring was the first grouse that we ever saw on the property, which was just astounding. I was taken aback. It was just as the snow was coming off, and I'm driving into the property, and I'm like, that's a grouse. Like I took all kinds of pictures of it, and still haven't heard them drumming yet. But our old property that we leased, we hear them drumming all the time. And my son's got great video. He was walking out after a deer hunt, and this grouse followed him out. And so then he ducked behind this tree, and the thing came around looking for him, followed him all the way back to our cabin.
That's awesome.
And so they're just a fascinating bird. And I think to us, it's an indicator species. If we can manage our property in such a way that grouse will flourish, then we're doing okay. So people listening to this thing don't care to hear from me. So I'm going to ask you guys, they don't. When you guys think about managing habitat for grouse, what do they need? What are the things when you step onto a piece of property and say, okay, we want to manage this for grouse? What are you looking to do or encouraging?
When I think of rough grouse and the habitat that they need, a chainsaws, logging, forest management. I'm just going to throw out some buzzwords: chainsaws, logging, forest management, young forest.
Yeah.
They are exactly as you said, an indicator species. Again, I made a reel about this recently, a video. Erich always, even before I knew him, and talking about deer management, cover that equals food, and that applies to all wildlife. But it applies more to ruffed grouse than maybe any other species, because especially here in Appalachia, we don't have, and I don't know if you guys have it up there, but northern grouse do really well in stands of aspen, because they hit the aspen buds all winter, and then of course they got plenty of soft mass during the summer. But we don't have that.
Yeah.
We don't have aspen down here in Virginia. So cover that equals foods in the form of soft mass. They need a lot of berries, a lot of fruits, but also hard mass as well. But they stems, high stem count, high stem density. The thicker the better. If you can walk upright through it and you're not having to dip, duck, dive, and dodge from dodgeball, it's not good grouse habitat. They need high stem counts. They need thick cover. Their number one predator is avian predators, hawks, raptors, owls. So they need protection from death from above. So it's, and it's interesting too that, there's a lot about grouse that we as sports outdoor that we don't know, because such a very heavily researched, and a lot of that is, there's a lot of reasons for that. They're a difficult species there's not a lot of them, for one. Erich has done a lot of research. It was called the AGCRP, the Appalachian Grouse Cooperative Research Project, down here in Appalachia, late 90s, early 2000s. And really, for our area, that's the most recent research that we have on the species. And that's coming up on almost 30 years old research.
Wow.
So there's still a lot that we don't know about the species, but to manage for ruffed grouse, they're an early successional species, but it's their habitat. In some ways, it's really easy to manage for grouse because it starts with forest management. You can do different types of timber harvests, can create ruffed grouse habitat. Clear cutting is a good way to do it. Shelter wood cuts can create ruffed grouse habitat, but it's, we were talking about deer and deer management, and deer respond immediately to any type of management that we do: food plots, timber stand, burns, whatever. Grouse, on one side of the coin, grouse management is really easy because it's timber management, it's young forest management, but it's like a grouse habitat. It's like a baseball bat, because there's a sweet spot in which ruffed grouse do really, really well. Thinking about young forest, that sweet spot, generally speaking, is 5 to 20-year-old regenerating young forest. Anything younger than 5, clear cut may be too thick in the terms, grouse wildlife, they need space to navigate. So it may be too thick in terms of grasses and shrubs that they can't navigate the space. Once you get to 5 years old, you start to get more stems and saplings, and then there's more underground space for them to navigate. From ages 5 to 20 is that sweet spot for ruffed grouse habitat. But once that forest starts to age out very, very quickly, 20, 25, 30, then it gets too open and you lose that stem density, you lose that thick cover, and it becomes less young forest and, more pole sized timber, where hawks, owls can easily fly through and hammer the grouse. So you have a sweet spot to manage grouse. So it's easy to create that grouse habitat, generally speaking, but on a landscape scale or on your property, it's difficult to keep it within that arrested succession, within that sweet spot of 5 to 20 years old.
Do you do prescribed burns at all to set that back, or how do you manage that? I mean, that's the hard. Once they hit that pole size, now you're going back in with saws again, and having to clear again.
Yeah, that's I guess a problem that I deal with on my property where I have grouse. Is it's the property that I was talking about earlier that I walked, that we bought. Before we bought it, it was clear cut probably 35 years ago now. And I wish I could have been up there 10, 15, 20 years. I bet it was just thick with grouse, just poplar stems. I bet it was just covered up. But as it is now, there are some grouse up there, but they're fewer far between, and that timber is aging out very, very quickly, and it's a weird middle-aged class of timber that I'm meeting with foresters trying to figure out a plan. And I mean, the solution is simple: fire or chainsaws to reset it. But it's because it's not really marketable or merchantable timber. It's not doesn't have a lot of value to the loggers. So there's a lot of factors at play. But I mean, in short, to answer your question, fire and saws reset that succession back to where it needs to be to get the regenerating forest.
The one thing that does not get discussed enough, and I don't know if you should, it's part of the conversation that Cody, how do you manage for grouse? He gave a great explanation there, but it's having conversations like this, advocating, because what Cody and I struggle with the most when we doing all this stuff, we thought, we'll take the deer hunting community and, it shouldn't be too difficult to bring some awareness to this. And you realize no. And one of the main reasons, and Cody and I talk about this quite a bit, most people don't have an emotional connection with the species.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's, along with habitat, that obviously that's the elephant in the room, but, bringing awareness, that's why, like, anytime we get a chance to talk about, rough grouse or, any woodland species, we'll jump on it because there's not enough of this dialogue happening. It's kind of off topic, but on topic. I didn't even tell Cody this, a guy, obviously leave his name out of it. He kind of bought into what Cody and I are doing. And he texted me the other day, and if you don't mind, I'll just read it real quick. He said, being a conservationist other than just a deer manager, it sucks. Being a conservationist sucks.
Yeah. And
so I read this, I wrote back to him. And again, please, it's short. Being a conservationist is not doing what's right. It's not even about managing our resources in a wise use manner. What it truly is being and feeling alone, being ridiculed by your own side as well as the other, feeling like an outsider, confused and anxious because all you see are heads down, sitting on hands in a room where you are standing up. Unfortunately, my friend, we are dinosaurs, but it's, I'll quit there. But yeah, so it's that when you decide, like, hey, I want to kind of dive into a different direction other than what the populace is doing. Yeah, it's that. I mean, you're not to get on a soapbox here, but we know what needs to be done to turn the rough grouse population, this downward trend, around. It's black and white. It is right there. But trying to get people to get an emotional connection with that species and log, it takes logging, wise use logging, not just going in there and, Uncle Ted's logging company and just go in there and expect grouse. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
But it's just getting people aware that the stuff we do, it's not really even about grouse in the whole scheme of things. It's because, you know what? If it can happen to the grouse in 2025, when we know more about wildlife management than ever before, and this is happening to this species, it's coming to the species that you are in love with, whether it's waterfowl, white-tailed deer, elk, mule deer. I mean, I think it's a sage grouse in, I think, North Dakota, South Dakota, Cody, that it's basically extinct from that state. And it's like, what in the world are we doing? This is happening on our watch. So it's habitat is obviously the number one thing, but it's just bringing awareness to a problem. So
yeah. Erich, that's I was hoping you would get fired up. I've heard you get fired up before, and I was hoping you might get there.
I don't take much. I got several trigger words. I'm German, and I'm ready to fight anybody at any time. Let's go.
You said earlier you worked with a state agency, and my daughter is a forester for Allegheny County. It borders on Pennsylvania here in New York.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I was supposed to say the county or not, but nobody will listen anyway. But so she part of what she does is she's managing county properties that forest lands, and it's mono aged. It's it's I mean it's pretty near a monoculture in terms of its they're all maple trees. There's a few other things that are thrown in, few beech, that kind of thing, and they're all the same age. And all they care about is what's the money we're going to get out of this, And so she's trying to say, well, look, we need to be managing these properties, these forests for health and for future and for that. And there's no way I think that I could work for a state agency. She just beats her head on the wall constantly. And I was thinking of her when you were talking about reading that text. It's just a constant beating against the wall. Like, you people are not getting this unless it's got dollar signs attached to it. I think maybe the hope is getting hearts, as you talked about, that hearts connected to the species. That's probably going to happen more with private ownership than on a mass state scale, at least here with the idiots in New York. But I think if you can, you get kids out and they hear that drumming, and what's that? Is that somebody starting a tractor, or is that a four-wheeler? No, that's a bird. Like that I know for my own children, that was when they first heard that connected with them. How do we do that? I mean, I know it's conversations like this, but how do we connect people's hearts to the grouse, to the situation?
Well, and Cody did chime in at any moment here. I
It sounds
wish.
like he's pleading.
No, it's. I find myself fighting for words anymore. I'm overthinking things. Um, I have a grouse in Ohio that I've been filming for 4 years now, Cody, or something like that. 4 years. And if I could take every single person in that blind in the month of March, April, and a little bit of May, and you watch that thing jump on the log and drum 10 yards away from you, and you feel it,
Yeah,
and you see it, there wouldn't be a stitch of woods that wasn't, forest health, would be a number one priority for everybody. But obviously you can't do that.
Right.
Cody's got some grouse that he's been filming, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But that's the problem. We are fortunate to have situations like that. And I've been trying to take people. I got enough footage of that grouse doing every single thing that you can imagine the grouse can do. So I'm trying to take more and more people of stature, if you will, that can make a difference, if that came out right, in the blind. But unfortunately, every time, including Cody, I mean, the grouse will be there every day. Set your watch to it. I go, like, all right, Cody, get on up here, and we'll go. And you can finish the sentence. Grouse does its show.
Yeah.
I took some Woodcock Society guys that are willing to work with Cody and I, doing some donations and, doing some financial type stuff. And I've taken biologists and everything. And that one damn time that grouse showed up, it's so frustrating. But yeah, it's again, to kind of circle back to your question. We just need more people, whether it's the who's who talking about it. I mean, let's be honest. If Michael Waddell was talking about grouse, people would be picking up a chainsaw and cutting their trees down. The figure of speech, obviously. Lee and Tiffany, all these people that are the who's who. They're not. Cody and Erich are grain of sand on the beach. And they need to hear it from somebody that's got maybe a bigger voice. I think, like what Cody was talking about earlier, that there is a slight change in the winds of people getting involved in different, just not one single species. And that's a start, because I have noticed that as well. And things will take time. I mean, we didn't get here overnight, and I still believe that we can get this turned around to at least plug some holes where we're not sinking too fast like we were. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like Erich said, that it's the answer to the problem. It's two-pronged. It's an emotional, it's habitat, and it's an emotional connection. You know, the habitat, we know how to create it, and what's lacking for most people is that emotional connection to the species. And, you know, you think, and a lot of it too, it's just because of how mysterious grouse are. And if you didn't, and again, down here it's different than I think for a lot of people up north, but if you never heard them drum, how would you even know they're there?
Right.
You know, because they're such a mysterious bird. There's so little we know about them. You know, and I tell people the same thing about Erich. And, you know, I would love to take people and the blind and not give them any context about the rough grouse situation. A spring morning, turkeys are gobbling, cardinals are whistling. It's cool, but it's, you know, the sun's coming up, and it's quintessential spring morning. If you can just close your eyes and put yourself in the woods during the spring, and you can almost set your watch by the time those little guys hop up on the log and drum. And it's usually right before, you know, first light, and you're sitting there, and the little guy hops on, and then and you just sit there and you feel it. And that's the thing, like Erich said, you literally feel it.
Yeah.
And then to watch that bird on the drumming log all morning during the spring and establish that emotional connection with it, and then give context to whoever you're sharing the blind with then, and say, you know, what do you think about this species? The drumming, the markings. You know, that's another thing about ruffed grouse is we can watch deer from a blind or a tree stand, and it's so cool to watch them sneak through the woods or in a food plot or at a water hole. We can sit and glass turkeys in a green field during the spring when they're gobbling. I mean, you can almost work them like a yo-yo. They come in and out, and they're gobbling right in your face. That's all an emotional connection. With grouse, you don't have that.
Yeah.
Think of most of our experiences with grouse. We're walking through the woods and you flush one, which is super cool, but it's 5 seconds. Or if you're a grouse hunter, you flush it and you shoot it, and then you get to hold it and you get to see it, but it's lifeless, right? And I mean, that's not to diminish grouse hunters, but, you know, there's a difference between, you know, sharing the woods with a living animal versus one that you just shot. So how often do we literally get to sit and observe and connect with a species? As naturalists, hunters, outdoorsmen, whatever you label yourself as, observation is our greatest gift. And we're not in a lot of situations where we can observe grouse. And I just think they're the coolest bird. Every time I watch them, you know, my footage, Erich's footage, our trail camera pictures, I fall in love with them over and over again. Their little mohawk, the rough feathers, you know, especially our southern birds are more chestnut colored than a lot of the birds up north. They're just beautiful. So all that to say, you know, you spend a couple hours watching the bird on a spring morning and then say, oh yeah, by the way, the species is struggling, and what can I do to help?
Yeah.
Responsible forest management, logging, and then, you know, that starts the habitat conversation. And like Erich said, it's about having these conversations, and it's, you know, it's not something we're going to solve today, tomorrow, or next week, but it's a, you know, around here. And it's another thing, like Erich said, if it can happen to grouse, it can happen to any species, and it's not going to happen overnight. I don't know how many people Erich and I talk to. You know, I look back through my dad and my grandfather's hunting journals from before I was born, and they shoot grouse, you know, and then over the years, they just out of sight, out of mind, people forget about them. That's what happens, you know, to the species. So you got to keep them in the conversation. There's so many people that I meet around here doing, you know, real estate photography or whatever. I'll go to people's properties that, you know, ask them, you got grouse, this, that, and the other. And, you know, you plant a seed in somebody's mind about grouse, and then they're just thinking about it a little bit more. And that's a lot of what Erich and I do, is just keeping them in the conversation. And then as a result of that, it's, their habitat and their management. And it's, it's our responsibility to tactfully and respectfully communicate how important forest management and logging is to the species. So there's no easy way to go about it, but it's every little bit moves the needle, and it's definitely a fight worth fighting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's you feel like people would say, well, why should I care about grouse, right? Like I'm not hunting them. We have so few small game hunters, at least in our area. Why do I care? Because exactly that. If it can happen to grouse on our watch, it can happen to any other species. And I think even communicating that, and Cody, the way you laid that out is perfect, to give them that experience and then allow the conversation to take place and to say, and this is why you care, or why we should care, because it can happen to any one of these species.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but let's take whitetail deer. We are in the heyday of whitetail deer, and my crystal ball, even though it's cracked and got some holes in it, says that it's not going to be like this very much longer.
Nope.
Okay, we are going to see in our lifetime this drop, or whoa, it's unrecognizable. Whether it's how we conduct chronic wasting disease, it's population control, how state agencies conduct business, how the social media world views what's the list goes on. I mean, you get on social media and it's disgusting, some of the stuff that you see referenced deer management. Everybody has a degree from Facebook, in deer management, and they're not afraid to, I know better. But again, it has a lot to do with the rough grouse, but it has nothing to do with the rough grouse, if that made any sense, because Cody and I, when we do this stuff, that's in our mind. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the species, the gold-winged warbler, and countless species, I think it's like 60, 70%, roughly, depends on who you ask, depend on early successional habitat ecosystems.
Yeah.
And rough grouse is the bellwether. It's an indicator species. It's the king of the forest. So people tend to use that. But there are so many species that depend on that early successional. And trying to convince somebody, not even not even a person of wokeness or whatever, just even somebody that is a sportsman or a conservation, to go into their property and decide to log. I swear that I want to write a book one day, The Uncomfortable Feeling of Wildlife Management. I mean, Cody, they had loggers in a couple of years back, and you have all this woods. And then when you hear that skidder start up and the saw's cutting, there's no turning back. Yeah. So to convince somebody, even on the conservation side, that needs to be done, it's very difficult, So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is uncomfortable. Our property, we've done quite a bit of clear cuts, shelter woods. We wanted high stem count areas for bedding and that kind of thing. But it was me doing it, right? It was my son's a logger. Now the neighbor's property that we've managed for 8 years got sold, and they came in and they took all the saleable, the timber, and then they just cut a mass of other stuff. It's a mess. And I confess, I'm looking at that going, oh my goodness. But I know that it's going to be decent eventually, but it's heartbreaking to see it.
Oh, yeah.
So, let me ask this. Is there, gosh, I'll probably get some hate mail for this, but whatever. Are there bridges that we can maybe create with non-hunting groups for the sake of grouse? Do you know what I mean? Like with the Audubon Society or, bird watchers, that kind of thing. You don't normally say, oh, here's hunters and here's bird watchers. We're going to work together on this. But I saw the hunting community come together with a whole bunch of other communities against the sale of the federal lands. Could this be something else like that we could come together in, do you think?
It should be. There's no reason why it shouldn't. I mean, and it goes back to me to that emotional connection, like Eric and I both talked about, because a lot of people, in defense of people who don't know or don't care, they're lacking that emotional connection. If you're not emotionally connected to something, it's hard to genuinely care.
Yeah.
It's easy to care. It's hard to genuinely care. But if you have an emotional connection to something, then you care about it. If you care about something, then you're willing to invest in its future. And apply that to rough grouse. Investing in its future could be managing your own habitat, fundraising, advocacy. I mean, there's a lot of ways to help a species. As far as it being a community project, like I said, there's no reason why it shouldn't, because I mean, grouse are a game species, but I don't, again, it's where I live. I don't really think of grouse as a game species. I mean, their grouse hunting is enormous, but, I don't think of them in the same breath as I do deer and turkey. But, a lot of it too is, again, it's our responsibility. It goes back to the messaging. And it's just like Eric said, communicating not just deer, turkeys, or the charismatic species, grouse or quail, how many species of wildlife benefit from early successional habitat, and not just wildlife, but a regenerating forest is a healthy forest. As a society, we've gotten, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. Like, I've cut a lot of trees. We've logged our property. We're logging it again soon. I love it. But once you cut a tree down, you can't stand it back up. But we've gotten so attached to trees that, and rightfully so. I mean, like I said, it's good to care. We just have to make sure we're caring about the right things and caring about the future. If you're anti-logging, I'm sure there are many reasons why you may feel that way, but it probably goes back to it. It makes you personally feel uncomfortable. There's research out the wazoo that says it's good for wildlife. It's good for ecosystems. It's good for the planet. It's good for trees, and trees are a renewable resource when managed correctly. And again, there's nuance involved. Logging, not clear cutting for development or whatever, but responsible forest management. It's hard to argue against any of it when you take emotion out of it. So there are a lot of different ways that we can connect with. Like me, I love ruffed grouse, have no interest in ever shooting one. We can connect with naturalists, wildlife enthusiasts, hunters, the monarch butterfly, which is everybody's, song and harp song that everybody is caring about these days. Rightfully so. Milkweed is the host plant. This time of year, you hear on Facebook and social media, milkweed and monarchs. We need to plant milkweed to save the monarch, which is super. I love it. Good for you. Milkweed doesn't grow in a closed canopy forest.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I mean? And I made a video back during the spring about a native plant response to a clear cut that we had done intentionally and tactfully. I mean, I did it intentionally, and I talked about the oak region, all these different forbs, flowers, shrubs, this, that, and the other that benefit deer, turkeys, grouse, quail, the gamut, but made sure to mention that there was a flush of milkweed, which is the host plant for monarch butterflies. And I put it on Facebook, and so many people were upset that I cut trees to get milkweed, which helps the declining monarch population. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? So it goes back to, if you're against logging, it's probably something that makes you feel uncomfortable personally. And that if that is the case, I don't think you genuinely care about the long term of forest and wildlife. And I mean, Doug Duran, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. He always says it's not ours, it's our turn.
Yep.
Our job as managers, as conservationists, is to leave it better than we found it. And there are some trees on our property or parts of our property that will break my heart to see logged or to see, clear cut or whatever. But again, my time on this earth will be over hopefully a long time, but eventually we're all going to leave. But
Yeah.
it's about leaving it better than we found it. And we have to make decisions now that even if they make us uncomfortable in the present, knowing that, it's going to benefit nature and wildlife and the environment, maybe today, 10, 20, 70, 100 years from now. And again, the mismanagement of our forest is a decade long result of poor forest management decisions.
That's right.
Smokey Bear and
Oof. Ooh, don't get
don't
me
cut our
started.
trees. Exactly. Those are decisions. That's marketing and messaging that was
Yeah.
communicated decades ago.
Yeah.
We're feeling the ramifications of it now. So
Worst
that's why
thing
it's
that ever happened
important.
to the
That's why
forestry
it's important
service.
that we have these conversations and communicate what we feel and what we know is right, so that, are we going to save the rough grouse today? I mean, hopefully, but hopefully the decisions that we're making and the conversations that we're going to have is going to keep rough grouse on the landscape 10, 20, 30 after we're gone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, to piggyback on that, Cody mentioned, and you briefly as well, like the hunting aspect of it. I have a English setter 6 years ago going through a midlife crisis, still going through it. Decided, like, you know what, I'm going to take up upland hunting and, go grouse hunting and all this other stuff. And I would love to tell everybody, go get a dog, and you will find that emotional connection doing that. And I would love to tell you that. And you can, but not everybody's going to do that. So how do you, um, uh, you know, um, convince somebody to log their place, and stuff like that and it's simply, changing the narratives. And this is something that Cody and I are currently, working on, is changing that narrative. When you see a log truck, what do you see? Do you see death and destruction, or do you see that life was created?
Yeah.
You know, um, it's stuff like that. How do you view that tree being cut down, and that's the narrative, and that's the message that we need to get out to people that are not left, not right, whatever,
Yep.
toward the logging aspect of things, but just like, hey, it's going to be all right. The most non-aesthetically pleasing habitat is usually the best habitat. It will grow up, it will not become air quote messy. But again, I live in central Ohio where, there's almost 30 logging companies in one county alone. And, you see logging trucks all the time. And Cody, there's a big giant paper mill, and people in that area see log trucks all the time. But as population grows and everything else, you're going to start seeing less and less of that because of narratives and people, grabbing onto stuff and, not being educated, and got to have a cause to fight. But again, um, I'm 51, like my generation of stuff, and I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole here. It's not like it's too late, if you will, but getting the millennial or Gen X generation educated on, you know uh, management. You heard this all your life, but there is another side of the coin.
Right.
you know so it's just reaching out to that
Yeah.
as well. I mean, there's so many ways to attack this, and we're trying to do our very best with, a small soundboard of as stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It makes me think, you know, we've had guests out to hunt, but maybe I should be having more people come out to our property to see, because you cut, and the native seed bank comes right back to life, and the stem count and the stuff that comes up when you open the canopy, it's astounding, and it's incredibly beautiful. And I should probably be grabbing that opportunity more with folks in our community to say, come here, I want you to see this and see what the result of logging is.
yeah. I mean, look that's a good point, Mike. It's back in the QDMA days. All these branches were just popping up everywhere. You know, And what those branches did to raise money, along with banquets, is have a field day event,
Right.
and
Right.
it's a sponge. I mean, I've been up in Western New York, giving those, being a guest,
Mhm.
on someone's property and educating people, and been all over the country doing those, and a lot in
Yeah.
Ohio as well. Um, People were there to learn, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we got away from all that. So
Yeah.
you did say something to the point where maybe we should just have those to show people. And last year, I had a deer client. He had some quail in the neighborhood, wild quail in the neighborhood. So he really got involved in that, and we started going down, and micromanaging his property, knowing that deer would benefit for quail. And
Mm.
he had a field day. He invited all the landowners. Nobody was there that was a air quote quail hunter,
Yeah.
or even a deer hunter per se. But he invited the community, local community, because he lives off of one of the roads that everybody drives down and they see his work. So he, killed the curiosity kills the cat. So everybody showed up at his place. I think there was like 30, 40 people at this, and they
Wow.
had quail forever, pheasants forever, biologists, myself, um, educated, just nothing but habitat. There was no hunting being discussed whatsoever.
Wow.
And by the end of it, we had people that there was a lot of buzz on controlled burning. And
Mm.
these people showed up, they didn't even know what controlled burning was. And by the end of this field day event, they and hopefully they go through with it this coming fire season. Um, they're having a controlled burn co-op. They created this where landowners are going to come together to help each other do burns on their property.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, it can be done. We did
Yeah.
it with white-tailed deer. I mean, what you see now is a result of the early mid 2000s. You know, everybody's pretty. Everybody, a lot of people can give a seminar based on what they've learned.
Yep.
Instead of going to school and doing the hard work. But like that, didn't you? Anyway, so um,
That's
but
fair.
yeah, I mean, you just have to get it to the people so they know,
Yeah.
and you don't know. I mean, if somebody had, said before, like everybody here is going to be wanting to burn their property, I would have called you a liar. And
Yep.
now they're like, there's a co-op being, hopefully, it's still in the works, but it's the buzz. I mean, people are ready to light their properties up for good quality habitat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mm. You
mhm,
mentioned your dog. I'm
mhm.
I'm gonna test my memory. Is that Waylon? Is
You
that his name?
betcha. Oh, Waylon.
Wow. I can't believe I pulled that out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, Waylon. It's funny because real quick, it's a stupid story, so therefore I will tell it. But it's funny. I wanted to get a dog, and I let my wife pick out which one, and I let my son name it. And he
Mhm.
said, "Let's name it Waylon." And I thought, yeah, Waylon Jennings.
Yeah.
And I remember him one day to my son, I said, "It's cool that you named him Waylon." He goes, "Yeah." And I said, why that's pretty cool that you listen to Waylon. And he goes, "Who's that?" There's a song by some modern country guy said something about Waylon, and he didn't even know I have a clue who Waylon Jennings was. I failed as a father, but but no, Waylon is he's 6 now, and
Wow.
it's great because he's taken me to Michigan, Pennsylvania. Last year we went to Kansas quail hunting, and this year we're going to South Dakota end of September to chase chickens and sharp tails and stuff. And
Mm.
it's so exciting, and that's what I wanted this dog to be is, let's go on adventures and let's go see country that you're never going to see again. It has nothing to do about shooting birds. And that's one thing about the upland community,
Yeah.
and it kind of circle back on how, the naturalist community, the non-consumptive community, and maybe the upland community have a lot in common and they don't know it because, let me step back. It's like Cody and I got invited to go to Pheasant Fest in Minnesota before the outbreak. I think it was in February, Cody, before
Mhm.
the COVID outbreak really, shut down. And it was so weird because here's two deer guys got to go there and talk, about conservation,
Yeah.
and no one knew who we were, and we didn't know who anybody was, and they were so welcoming. I've never been around a group of people that were so warming to you. It would show you stuff on Onyx and here, hunt this place and all that stuff. And when you get on social media, it's like the pictures, even the upland community pictures are so tasteful. It's more
Yeah.
about the dog. It's more about the habitat. It's more about the sunset and sunrise. Has not, you won't hear upland hunters, at least the ones that I know, don't say, "Hey, I shot my bag limit today," like waterfowl hunters or deer hunters or something like that.
Yep.
It's more about, a lot of pictures are just a dog and a bird, not even a person in it. So it's a different type of community, where those two communities, a non-consumptive community and an upland community, just getting those two together would be, because again, it has nothing to do with shooting a bird. Like, more times than not, we don't, like, when we go grouse hunting, we're not shooting birds. Number one, can't hit them, and number two, it's just, they're not behind every tree. But no, it has nothing to do. It's adventures. It's going outside and just living your good life. It's nothing. You just throw a pair of blue jeans on and a flannel shirt and a hunting vest and a, over and under gun. It's like, it takes you back to when you were
Takes,
growing up squirrel hunting, where you just grabbed your gun after school and you went out. It's
yeah.
not a fashion show. You don't have to wear Sika or Kuyu or all that stuff. It's just, it's just so much fun,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway.
Do you know Frank and Kyle with Upland Flush? They're out west, and they're very much into pheasant, and they work part of I'm trying to remember, Land and Legacy. They're part of that group. So that, I don't know, but they're really they're really tied into the pheasant community out there, and they're just good guys managing, for that. And then it's the same kind of tasteful photos and conversation and storytelling within their pictures and videos, and it's neat. So
Yeah.
The Kyle
Yeah,
name sounds familiar, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Even the
that right.
biologists that, like when you meet Pheasants Forever or quail biologist, they're just a different type of person. They're
Yeah.
talking about micromanaging, where if the deer community would grab a hold of those people and have them on their property, your deer hunting would be more, a lot better.
Yeah.
Instead of just somebody coming in saying, "Hey, plant some Ascanthus and plant some brassica and see you later." But yeah, it's those people are just so intelligent,
Yeah.
to have a grouse biologist on your property that can, they can just take your property and just blow it up in a positive sense.
Yeah. Wow. So Cody, you do a lot of photography and videography, right?
I do.
And it is and you're both are pretty tied in with social media stuff, the good and the bad and the ugly. Is there, I mean, if we're sharing videos and stuff that you're putting up of grouse specifically, do you think that helps to move the needle? I mean, there's some education, but I don't know. Your photography, it pulls at my heartstrings. Like, even the picture, there's a photo of the two of you sitting on the back of I don't know, maybe a pickup, just having a beer at the end of the day. And I'm like, that they get it. Like, there's just a warmth to it. And I wonder if that's another way that maybe we can connect hearts to grouse.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, I thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. But I think it absolutely is a way, because, Eric and I both said, come into the blind with us and experience. Well, that would be ideal, but obviously not everybody has the means to do that.
Sure.
Photography and film, it's an enormous storytelling tool, that through a lot of the conservation work that I have done, 10 years ago, did some work in Africa about rhinos and elephants. And, most people in the United States, they can't go and see, a rhino or an elephant, but with visual storytelling, you can make that connection. And, kind of to circle back what we were talking about earlier, it's with grouse, it just, I don't know how many times Erich and I, and you may have heard this as well, over the years, it's just, gradually out of sight, out of mind. And then, when you mention to somebody about grouse, they'll say, oh, I can't remember the last time I saw one, or it's been forever since I've heard one. So it's just this problem that's occurred incrementally, over the years. But on the other side of the coin, if you just, like we talked about, just planting that seed, and photography and film and storytelling is a great way to do that. There's a guy that I do some work with around here, that I started working with him at the beginning of this year, and he and I've known each other prior to working together, but never had a relationship. And beginning of this year, anybody I can get in their ear about anymore, it's about grouse. If they care, they care. If they don't, they don't. But at least I'm gonna bug them about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, as he and I have established a friendship and a working relationship, grouse have been just a part of our everyday conversation and a part of some projects that we're eventually going to be working on. But prior to he and I working together, he's from this area, knew about rough grouse, but I mean, candidly, to him, they were probably no different than a blue jay or a cardinal. They were a bird in the woods, but based on me being in his ear and planting that seed and the conversations that we've had together throughout the course of the year, it's pretty interesting to hear him say, oh, well, this good grouse habitat, or I was at a property here that looked like grouse habitat, or this landowner has grouse habitat, or grouse, just by planting a seed. And not that I did anything special other than plant that seed. Just by planting a seed in his mind, it put grouse that was probably way in the back of his mind, moved it a little further to the forefront. Yeah. Now he's more aware about rough grouse. He knows if he sees one, how special it is, or the importance of forest management, or it's just he's more aware than he was before. And that all started just by planting a seed. And all that to say, again, most people, in defense of the majority, they don't know about the situation with rough grouse. They don't know how dramatic of a situation it is as far as populations declining. They're a species of concern in 19 different states. Most people don't know that. And it's just not common knowledge. So social media, it is a great way to communicate the benefits of forest management. It's a great, as we talked about it, rough grouse are a hard species to establish a personal emotional connection with, because just the nature of they're a hard bird to connect with, just the nature of their day-to-day life. But on, with the footage that Erich and I had, and I see a lot of trail camera videos, there are other photographers out there. Tim Flanagan is one that comes to mind that captured just beautiful images of grouse on a drumming log or on grouse things. And that is a great way to plant the seed. To answer your question, the sharing photos and videos, does that move the needle? You can't convince me that it doesn't. It's a great way to get people to connect. And again, most people, if you're down south, you don't have grouse, period. But a photo that gets shared, oh, well, that's cool. It moves, like I said, moves it from the back of their mind a little further to the front. And just as the grouse situation happened, it happened incrementally, slowly downward. How we're going to change it is incrementally, slowly upward. There's no microwave success, magic pill that's going to fix it overnight. It's conversations like this that has to happen every day. It's habitat that I do on my property, that Erich does on his, that you do on yours. It's going to be an incremental, slow process, but every little bit makes a difference and moves the needle.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I referenced, the video work and all that stuff, and I agree with Cody. You can't convince us otherwise with that result. But just want to let people know that just because you log your place, you have a professional forester come in, a consultant or a state forester come in, and he or she does their work, and execute what they recommend, and things are all good. That doesn't mean you're going to have grouse.
No.
they don't migrate. They're not woodcock. But a lot of state agencies, and I'm speaking out loud, obviously, a lot of state agencies kind of just put the rough grouse on the back burner because, grouse bring a little controversy with it because of the logging, aspect of things. You got to keep the constituents, at bay. And, keep everybody happy. So, but if more and more people are conscious of that forest health, maybe we could put some pressure on state agencies where, hey, we have a section of a county, we have a section of a township, we have sections of a state that are really being proactive on forest health. Okay. Um, maybe that again, that'll put pressure on them to start wheeling and dealing and moving grouse successfully, like we did with the turkeys in the 90s, and transplanting them. Is the success high by doing that? No, but it's not like detrimental. Oh, I butchered that word, didn't I? Shut up, Cody. So anyway, yeah, I have my own English. Anyway, so no, it's just you can put pressure, but if people don't hear, if the state agencies don't hear the conversation, it's not going to happen. But
Right.
moving grouse, you can have success with it. Having pen birds, just like the turkeys, it's disease. It's just they're not the brightest bird to begin with. The success is almost zero. I know as a state agency in Ohio, we tried that. Oh, this was quite some time ago, maybe 10, 15 years. And don't quote me on any of that. But we took birds and put radio collars on them. And I think it was like a week or two, they were all dead. So, but transplanting birds, Pennsylvania has birds, New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, it's just like an NBA draft, man. I'll give you 5 quail for, a box full of grouse. I mean, it's what do you need that I will give you? That's how kind of things work sometimes with some state agencies, but you gotta have a place for them to go. We tried that with the quail as well in the state of Ohio. We got quail from Kansas, and and we stuck them on certain wildlife areas, and they were doing good. But once they start expanding, the habitat outside was just a demise of the quail. But again, having co-ops, like in my neck of the woods in Ohio, there's still a lot of quality deer management co-ops. They meet twice a year and stuff like that. And again, I was part of that. What's the word I'm looking for? That adventure or the new movement, if you will. What's that?
Movement.
Yeah, thank you. I have subtitles sometimes. But
I speak Erichanese.
Yeah, he speaks Eric pretty good. But that movement where, like, hey, we're going to have a co-op meeting where there was maybe 2 or 3 people show up. The next meeting, there was 20. And by the time 4 years came by, it's standing room only 200 people, landowners or people that hunt those areas. Why can't we do that? And don't say, well, it ain't going to work, because I've seen it work. I've seen it, work. So again, just like a lot of it, it's habitat and going back, it's the narrative. It's just sharing what you know and getting, if we could put a lot of people in front of Rough Grouse Society, grouse biologists and quail forever biologists, and they would just, their mind would just blow up. But they're not the who's who. They're not popular. Most of them on social media are pretty dry people and stuff like that. Let's call a spade a spade. And, they're so smart that they come across like, you're talking above me and I'm uncomfortable. But they're just so incredible. Cody's working with one right now in his neck of the woods. And, what he's learned, he passes it on to me and stuff like that. I mean, I know about rough grouse, but I don't know about rough grouse, So I'm a sponge. Like, how many species of plants do rough grouse eat? Cody, what was it? Over 200 species or something like that? 300 species of food. Yeah. So it's so much stuff that we don't know, but we do know, and we need to share that information. But the problem is, will it take money? Sometimes, money does solve some issues in the wildlife world, But this, I think, it's not one of those cases where you can throw money at it. Hey, donate to this, donate to that. Which Cody and I will surely take your money, and do what's right with it, and we've proven that with great success. Grassroots, fundraising. But again, it's just getting the message out. Not to beat a dead horse. It's just getting the message out that there is a problem, like Cody mentioned a little bit ago. But people don't know that the 19 states, it's most of them are species of interest. So
yeah, that triggered in me that I don't even know that New York has a grouse biologist. I would assume they would. I'll have to.
It's they'd be titled an upland biologist. That usually falls into their. I would assume they do.
That's I've had the deer biologist on from New York. I'm going to chase that down and see, just to make a contact. It doesn't even have to be about a podcast. They probably be ecstatic to know that somebody's thinking about it. So that's an action step for me to take when we finish here. So yeah. Is there anything that I haven't asked about that I should have, or anything that I didn't bring up that I should have?
Like why Cody has a bad attitude? I don't have no idea.
Oh, I don't know. There's there's a lot about the species, its habitat. I mean, gosh, I don't know. Erich, I was telling Erich, I mean, the white-tailed deer, it would be hard for any animal to supplant it. If you were to ask me what's your favorite animal, it would be very hard for any animal to take over whitetails as my favorite. It's a very, for me, a very, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people, a very personal and spiritual connection. But in this last season of my life, the last 6 or 8 years, I mean, it's white-tailed deers 1A and rough grouse are 1B. So I can talk about the species. I can talk about anything related to rough grouse till I'm blue in the face. But it's like Erich said, it's important to have these conversations. Is it habitat? It's so nuanced, which I think is really cool, because is habitat a solution? It is advocacy a solution? It is. Money creates habitat. Fundraising, on a lane, as Erich said, rough grouse are a non-migratory bird, so if they're not in the neighborhood, you could have just thumping grouse habitat. But if they're gone, nature finds a way. But if they're gone, they're gone, and that should give us a sense of urgency. But a lot of it is just the messaging. Like Erich said, a lot of it is about rough grouse, but a lot of it isn't about rough grouse. A lot of it is about forest management and forest health. And one analogy that I communicate to people, and this isn't about rough grouse, it is indirectly about loggers and the logging community and forest management. It's loggers and farmers. And the disclaimer is, everything I say henceforth is not a knock on farmers or farming. My family farms. I hope everybody understands the point I'm trying to make. But farming, it's a very American ideal. We romanticize, it's a very romantic idea. As even hobby farming, especially even big production ag, when you see combines and big John Deere equipment going down the road, it makes you feel patriotic. It makes you feel a very certain way. Erich and I would love for society, why do we not view loggers the same way? We should. And if you think about it, and again, this is not a knock on farmers and farming, but there was even a commercial made about farming for the Super Bowl. God made a farmer. Very American idea, very romantic, very patriotic. We should view loggers the same way. And how many millions, literal millions of acres of prairie in the Midwest are gone for forever because of farming. Logging, when done well and done responsibly, is forest product use. It's something that I need to learn more about. How many products we use in our day-to-day lives that come as a result of trees would blow people's minds. It is amazing for the environment. It is amazing for wildlife. We should prop up loggers and logging communities no different than we do farmers and farming communities. And in some way, the houses that we live in are a result of trees being cut down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So much good comes from logging. I'm fortunate to live with a paper mill literally 10 minutes up the road. This economy lives and breathes on it. And it just goes back to the messaging and communicating how important it is for the American dream. Without loggers, what does our country look like in so many words?
Yep.
Yeah, it's God, Cody, that was good shit. Oh, excuse my language.
You're okay, Erich. You're okay.
Sorry. You know when Eric's feeling comfortable when I start dropping
Good.
that stuff.
That's
So
what we want. No worries.
yeah, I mean, God, that's probably the best you've ever explained that. That was pretty damn good.
Thanks.
The things that the rough grouse, you know, to go back to your question, but piggyback on Cody, grouse, they have a big battle, the future, you know, it's a big battle. And it's like Cody has a paper mill. Well, those paper mills are fading fast throughout the whole country. So you have, you know, some incentive for someone to log, you know, is the financial aspect of it to the non-consumptive, you know, person or whatever, you know, not the hunting aspect of it or whatever. So if you're not going to give me the best price because, you know, logging is down, you know, the prices are down, I'm not going to log my property. Well, that affects the rough grouse and other species as well. We're just using rough grouse as an example. So as we get farther and farther away from paper, the farther and farther away we are, you know, trying to find a solution. I mean, simple things like you talk to a logger, you know, I know in my neck of the woods, they always blame, you know, the millennial generation and younger. They don't go to a furniture shop like we did or mom and dad's. They go to IKEA. Well, that affects the rough grouse.
Right.
And we could sit there and go, snap of a finger, go, you know what? Even though I clapped there, not snap of a finger, but you'll get the point. If we got everybody on board to log, where do we put that product? You know, where do we put that product? And that's an uphill battle. So it's just, it's habitat, it's advocating, it's, you know, I mentioned something about money might not solve it. I mean, but it does because Cody made a point of correcting me there that, you know, we can take those funds and do projects and stuff like that. But still, when you do a rough grouse management product or a project on a wildlife area or state federal ground, they still have to find buyers for that stuff, you know? So it might get delayed. It might do this. It might do that. So, you know, stop buying your desk from IKEA and, you know, buy some real furniture. And again, it's just, it's, Cody mentioned, you know, that it's a lot of things, but that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize that, you know, where do we put that product? You know, prices dictate stuff, and those prices are dictated by overseas, or they're dictated by, you know, furniture is what a lot of, you know, lumber goes to and stuff. But if you only have, how many paper mills are in Virginia now, Cody? Well, I think there's just a couple in there.
Oh, well, I don't know exactly how many. Who was telling me? One of the foresters, 2 in Southwest Virginia just shut down.
Yeah.
And
So
where I'm at, we are very, very fortunate. And Erich makes a good point. You know, like I said, the forest product market, I think is fascinating. Something I would love to learn more about. But here in my area, we are spoiled rotten because there's a hardwood pulp and paper mill 10 minutes down the road. Not, I think one of very few left in the Southeast. So around here, we're very fortunate because there's a logging's enormous around here. Everybody has family that either works at the paper mill, or you have a family member that logs, or, you know, it's directly tied to logging or the paper mill somehow. But a lot of the log trucks most of the log trucks you see going up and down the road, it's pulpwood. where they're not hauling veneer white oak up and down the interstate every single day. So we're very, very fortunate where we are here that we can create habitat. We can move the needle as far as forest management goes because of that hardwood pulp mill right up the road. Most communities, and I mean, you look at a map from Appalachia, from me up to Erich and everywhere in between, there's a lot of mismanaged forests, and it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, log your woods. Okay, super. I cut the tree. Where's it going? Where's that log truck taking it? I mean, that is a very nuanced discussion and conversation of which I'm not as familiar as I'd like to be. But all that to say, like Erich was saying, it's multifaceted. But again, a lot of what Erich and I are doing is just however you look at forest management, logging, forest product, just think about the rough grouse. It is the ideal poster child for everything that branches off of that tree. And like I said, it could be as simple as buying, hardwood furniture from a local. It's just when you're making these decisions as best you can, obviously, think about the future of the rough grouse if you can, and make decisions accordingly.
I mean, we have people thinking about the turtles or the sea animals when you throw away the 6-pack holder or whatever.
Right.
If we can get people to start thinking that way, even affecting in their purchases, that moves the needle.
Yeah. Well, a big part of it, sorry, Erich, is putting a face to the movement, exactly like you said. And I'm not sure if you guys have it up there. Erich mentioned it, the golden wing warbler. It's a warbler.
No, I don't think so.
I don't even know what it is. I mean, if you were to put a golden wing warbler, if you were to put a line of birds in front of me, one of them being a golden wing warbler, I couldn't pick it out. But it's a timber harvest as part of some of our NRCS programs in the state of Virginia called a golden wing warbler, and it, early successional brushy habitat, this, that, and the other. Whoever came up with that idea, it's brilliant because you put a face to logging and you incentivize, like Erich said, to the non-consumptive landowner, you incentivize logging and having your timber managed and harvested, because most landowners, they are non-consumptive. They don't hunt, or they are like most land, the idea of logging makes them uncomfortable, which is completely fine. But again, if you have the conversation and say the golden wing warbler, their habitats are declining, if you log your woods responsibly with the help of a forester and execute this plan, you're going to help this little itty bitty bird. You're going to create habitat for it, and you're going to help its populations increase. Brilliant. The same should be done for rough grouse as far as, and again, I mean, a golden wing warbler cut, it's not directly it's not rough grouse. I mean, there's difference between a golden wing warbler cut and a grouse, a grouse management cut. One helps the other. I mean, there's differences between the two, but in so many words, when you're doing a golden wing warbler timber harvest, you're helping rough grouse. So it's just, again, use rough grouse as the poster child, as the face for clear cutting. If you don't like the word clear cutting, I heard a logger say renewal cut. Clear cutting is a dirty word apparently, but renewal cut is easier to digest, so just put rough grouse as the face to all of this stuff. And then you make it, Disney, almost, apply the Disney effect to it if that's what it takes.
Yeah. Cody, he mentioned something that I was going to bring up, but he touched on it, is that, with cutting, like in the deer management world, you, like a lot of the deer management community know that, hey, I need to log my woods a little bit, cover to equals food. And, but that's not the right cut, because a lot of clients that I go to, it's not high grading, but it's not the right cut. But they had just a private consultant come in, forester and stuff like that. And they only know what they know because they ask the client, what are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to do deer management. Okay, well, we'll just do this, this, and this. It's almost to the point, again, changing the narrative and how, like Cody mentioned, how you attack a piece of property that you're trying to manage for whitetail deer. Instead of having a private consultant come in or a state forester, you tell them, like, hey, I want to manage for grouse. I guarantee you, or have a rough grouse, forester come in. They know how the forest health aspect of it, what it's going to take. Trust me, your deer are you're increasing the carrying capacity and you're putting more food on the table for whitetail deer, 8 to 10 pounds a day, that's great stuff, but we're going to do the right cut. And, so yeah, I mean, it's just how I try to, not lately, but there toward the end when I was doing a lot of consulting, trying to convince people like, hey, let's manage this property for rough grouse. And they look at you like, no, we're here for deer. It's what I'm paying you. And it's like, no, let's, when you manage for grouse, it's having a different, when you decide to manage your woodlands, have somebody that specifies. It's just a different phone number, man. There's nothing different. It's just a different set of eyes on they see. And no offense that the other people don't know, they do know it, but they're only listening to you. So that's what they're there for that day. But it's just a different set of eyes. It's a different mentality. You're going to accomplish what you want. Plus, bonus, you're going to be hopefully golden-winged warbler, other species of wildlife that's going to benefit. I mean, who doesn't like sitting in a deer stand and all you see is squirrels? That sucks, and chipmunk. That's it. It's just terrible. Well, when you're hunting over, a really, 6 to 8 year old clear cut, if you will, it is just constant movement of life from birds to this to that. I mean, someone that has ADHD, self-diagnosed, man, I need that. It gets me off my phone. So it's just,
Eric, are there many, do you think, that do habitat or would have that set of eyes like for grouse? Like I think if I were to work with our foresters, they would just I think they'd give me a blank stare. Like,
well,
you want to
not to, do we know that though? I mean, do we know that, or we're just assuming? And again, if I mean, I can tell it stories, but I got to get going here. But it's I had a forester a couple weeks ago on a piece of property for a client because I only know what I know, and I can manage your woodlands, but let's get somebody that does it every day, as a profession in here. And she pulled me aside and was like, I am so happy you're here because this is stuff that I get off on. This is stuff that's exciting because we're going to manage it for grouse, but we're there for deer.
Yeah.
I mean, the purpose of the property purchase was for deer, but we're micromanaging it. I remember Cody, I don't know if you remember this. I told him, it's like, let's manage for quail. We're going to manage your property for quail, not deer. And just by chance, was it 2 years ago?
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah. We're sitting there in his house. We were doing some filming and stuff and sitting in his house and we're eating lunch. And through the house, we heard a bobwhite whistle. And we kind of like, we didn't do anything. And we went back to eating, heard it again. We looked at each other, put our head down. It went something like this. But then the third time, I think it was, or second time, it was like we looked at each other and we were just like two school kids. We ran outside. We were high-fiving, hugging. They're just like, yeah, it worked. It worked, but yeah, it's exciting. All this is, it should be exciting. It should be motivation. And worst case scenario, you log your place and there's no grouse, okay.
Right.
The life that you created for a certain amount of time is unbelievable. Just know that you did good. You did something right. You left your footprint on a landscape and not a negative aspect of it, a positive aspect. You can sit back and go, man, this conservation stuff's pretty cool.
You left it better than you found it.
Yes.
I tell you what, the whole quail thing, to this day, Eric knows where I live and knows our property and the surrounding. I have no idea where they came from. Don't ask me how they got there. Don't ask me where they came from. And again, if you got grouse habitat in South Georgia, you're not going to have grouse. Like, let's just be honest. But nature finds a way. And if you live in an area where historically there was grouse, they're a non-migratory bird. And again, nature finds a way.
Yeah.
As part of that AGCRP and grouse, they do travel. They're non-migratory, but every fall the brood disperses. They got to find their own home. Ideally, they don't have to go far. Meaning they don't have to go far means they're just good habitat, but they're going to travel until they find their own little home range. So they do travel. But as part of that research, I think it was in Kentucky, and one of the banded birds, one day it started here, and then the next ping they got on the transmitter was 4 miles this way, and then a couple weeks later it was 2 miles this way. So that's, and again, it's a rough grouse. I mean, it's a 1 pound bird, and I think it flew across a river. It was eastern Kentucky, so that's rough country. It traveled some rough terrain. So, and I use the quail as an example. You do things with good intentions. That doesn't mean you're owed anything, but nature finds a way. God, I feel like, puts animals where they need to be and where they can be cared for. So
Amen.
All that to say, no work is too insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to bring us to a close. Although, Erich, you looked like you wanted to say something more.
No, I just have this look all the time.
It's the only one you got.
That's all I got. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for jumping on and taking time out. I know I said I keep it to about an hour, but we're like an hour and 40. So I really appreciate you.
No, appreciate the invite.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You said you're real quick before we get off. You said you're a pastor.
Yeah, I am. I don't tell anybody.
Oh,
yeah. No, I am.
How's that working out? How's that working out? I mean, yeah, to God, I don't tell people about Lord and Jesus and all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm a Free Methodist pastor, and so a small town church, about 100 people, and
excellent.
So when you talk, Cody, about that's God, that God puts deer or puts wildlife where it's going to be cared for. We're really big on that idea of stewardship, that there's a biblical mandate that we steward the creation that God has given us. So leaving it better than we found it. So,
yeah. If you guys ever, I'm going to extend this, and, Cody lives, in Virginia, I'm in Ohio, but you guys ever have a dinner or something like that and want somebody, we do presentation, or not presentation, but, talks and seminars, and love to come and, and talk to your peeps, and,
that would be awesome.
Have talk about wildlife and bring a little spirituality to it. Would love to help you out there doing that. That would be
fantastic. So cool. Well, thank you, gentlemen. If you want to hang on. Oh, wait. Tell folks where they can find you, and I'll put it in the podcast notes too.
Everything I do on social media anymore is I created a little page for my property, which Erich is, his fingerprints are figuratively and literally all over our property. Rockin' Chair Ridge. And then the Deer Hunter Project is where you can find our stuff. Rockin' Chair Ridge is how it sounds. No G on Rockin', ROCKIN _chair _ridge. And then that's Instagram, obviously. Then the Deer Hunter Project, deer is DEAR. And then you could find both of those on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Thanks, brother.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
God bless.
Enjoyed it. Absolutely.
Thanks.